Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to the Psychic Soul Healer channel. My name is Laura Schwam, and I'm going to do another vlog slash oracle reading. I always like to do topics of education because right now there's a war on consciousness that's happening, and that it's actually like a big gaslight, right? If we live in an environment that the narrative is you're not enough, you're not safe, you don't have enough money, again, someplace that puts you in a place of limitation, well, then you're out of alignment with your true self, and your true self is the God part of self, and that's the energy of unconditional love. When we are in that energy, we're open to receiving, we become a magnet for that type of energy. And so there's a war on consciousness right now. And really, the weapon of choice is gaslighting. So today I'm going to do a topic that touches the core of our senses, which is all about gaslighting and reality distortion. Why? Because in when we get into any type of relationship, karmic relationship especially, it doesn't mean it has to be a past lover. It could be you grew up into a family where you don't get along with your mother, or you don't get along with your father, or you don't get along with your siblings, or you feel like you don't even belong to the family. It doesn't need to be romantic. It could start with these karmic ties, right? And then it begins to also mirror out through other relationships, and the karmic theme is one that keeps you bound to a place of victimization, betrayal, lack, limitation, making you perceive that there's something missing, that there's something wrong with you, that you're defective. Because again, that's what the reality is teaching. So I wanted to do a vlog to illuminate what gaslighting really is, to reveal the common tactics that really erode away our perceptions, and offer guidance on recognizing when our reality is being undermined, and so that we can reclaim our clarity and really our true authentic self. Now, here, the intention is not to accuse, because again, we don't want to accuse, because then we're bound to this energy of anger, and we don't want to be connected to that anger. We don't want to be ruminating on that anger. What we want is to, again, create awareness so that you can notice the subtle shifts, to trust your inner compass. That's really what's most important, because gaslighting teaches you not to trust yourself, to again undermine yourself. So again, we don't want to ever do that, because when we grow away from ourselves, then we become more like our environment and the people in our environment, and you don't want to be part of your environment because you don't know what those people have lived, what their experiences are, how healed they are. You want to be in control of your life. You want to have full control over your spiritual sovereignty. So it's not just about learning to trust your inner compass, but also to learn how to respond with intention and grace, because God knows when you're dealing with a person that gaslights, their weapon is to get you to react, because they know what they're doing. People that gaslight know what they're doing. They're showing you a narrative that is, again, going to make you perceive that there's something wrong with you, or that you can't have, that puts you in a place of limitation, that takes you out of your true energy. But gaslighting is more than just a moment of confusion, okay? It is a systematic undermining of one's sense of reality. It often begins with just small, plausible denials. It doesn't start big, right? It's almost like where you question, did that really happen? Or maybe it's my imagination, or maybe it was a coincidence. Because we don't want to assume that people are bad. But the problem is that that energy begins to gradually chip away at our confidence, with which then we interpret our experiences, and again, who we are and our perceptions of what we can have, which is based on a lie, pretty much. The person and the system, that tends to employ the gaslighting tends to dismiss your feelings, twist the facts, again, presents fabricated narratives as if they were really objective truths. So, again, that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a person that gaslights. So, over time, the target begins to just question their perceptions and really their own sanity over time. Person feels like they're crazy over time. And so the term itself conjures up just a chilling image, right? Gaslighting. Just a repeated distortion of reality designed to gain control, to keep the other person off balance, and to erode, just their sense of trusting themselves, their sense of self, wears away at their self-esteem. So, among the most like insidious tactics are, again, denying, trivializing, and manipulating evidence, you know, Denial appears out of outright refusal to acknowledge evidence that occurs or statements that were actually made, often paired with claims that, the target is overreacting. So it's like if you were with someone that was continuously telling you, you're too sensitive. That's not really what happened, and they trivialize it. Again, they make it like, oh, that it wasn't that big of a deal, or now it's your reaction to what happened. And so again, just trying to dismiss your feelings. And which over time, then what happens? You don't share your feelings. That's what happens. You don't feel safe to be vulnerable. And if you can't be vulnerable, well, intimacy is built on that. So when we have relationships where someone actually has gaslighted us, and we see it as betrayal, major betrayal. So again, it's all about, the person minimizing your emotions, your experiences by labeling them as overdramatic. You're irrational. Again, it feels like a soft, persistent wind that just gradually erodes the shoreline, okay? Because it's not done. A lot of times it's done very passive aggressively. It's done with these little comments. Again, to make you feel as if you're less than. Just leaving the person that was gaslighted wondering whether the tide ever rose at all. Like whether or not, like, you know, even though we actually see that the tide is wearing away and is eroding that shoreline, right? That's the person that is like they don't trust their perceptions anymore. That's what happens. They don't trust themselves anymore. So, manipulating is just a more calculated tactic that presents a skewed version of events, withholding information. Again, this is how it's gaslighting, withholding information. So you're basing your actions on half truths. Again, leaving out important information that just supports the gaslighter's aims, right? Because there's an end goal. The goal is never truth, but control, not in understanding or having you understand. It's about power, dominance, control. So recognizing when your reality is being undermining requires attention, patience, and a willingness to listen to your body's own signals. A pattern is what often emerges. A persistent nagging, like it just feels like something's off, and like you just can't relax, especially after a conversation that kind of felt off. It's a growing sense of confusion about what happened, or an increasingly tendency to feel like you have to apologize or fix things from an experience that felt real. But you might find redefining your memories to fit someone else's story because what you realized is that the story really never happened, but you're trying to figure out, so you're thinking that maybe you forgot. You may notice a change in how you're spoken to all of a sudden, and being spoken to over told you that you are too emotional, that, or you accused of mistreating somebody else after they're really mistreating you. Another telltale sign is just the repetition of the same accusations in different contexts, gradually becoming so familiar that they start to feel true when they're not. When you seek verification from others and find selective inconsistency or dismissive responses that just signal a distortion of reality, trusting your intuition becomes crucial here. Does a memory sit with you as accurate and meaningful, or does it feel manipulated? You have to again ask yourself. You have to take time out. You have to be able to trust that higher self for the answer. A fragment that doesn't fit the broader picture or experiences is what you should sense out. What doesn't make sense? What doesn't feel right? To recognize this dynamic is to really be able to anchor yourself in concrete practices. So then, journaling. We've all heard how journaling is helpful, but journaling is helpful here when you're dealing with someone that gaslights, because a person that gaslights forgets, they lie, they manipulate. They're counting on the fact that you're not going to remember. And you will begin to question, because if the person keeps saying, no, I didn't say that. No, you misunderstood. Oh, see, you're not grounded. Oh, you see how you get so emotional. You know, if you journal, well, now you have concrete evidence. Journal serves as a witness to your own experiences, documenting the dates, the conversations, and your emotional responses. So when you review the entire situation later, you're going to notice patterns, instances that where you were dismissed, or where the other person's version of the events just really conflict with, like, with not just your memory, but the notes that are right there in your notebook. So seeking, like to be able to corroborate from trusted friends or professionals really can also provide another layer. Like sometimes in just telling your friend what happened and the experience, because your friend is also going to remember like little details that struck out to them. See, you might not even feel offended by certain things, but when you tell your friend the story, certain things are going to trigger their intuition. And they're going to be able to tell you the situation from their perception, and understand their perception and your perception could be two different perceptions that lead to the same exact place of manipulation. Now you have proof. Now you have evidence. So being able to really like have someone to like talk to allows you to kind of, peel away the layers to get to the clarity, especially when you feel pressure to accept a distorted narrative. Because all the time when you're dealing with a person that's gaslighting, that's what they're doing. They're going to rush you. They're like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. They don't want you to be able to like reflect. They don't want you to be able to think. And again, it's not about your identity, what you want, or forming a partnership. Usually what it's about is dominance, control. So it's important to be able to separate the behavior from your self-worth. Gaslighting is a reflection of the gaslighter's need to control, not a reflection of your value. Establishing boundaries. Clearly state what you will accept, what you will not, and what consequences will follow if manipulation continues. In many cases, safety becomes the primary concern, particularly when the distortion is sustained or calculated and escalates into emotional abuse. Reclaiming reality often involves reaffirming your own sensory experiences, validating your own emotions, and choosing whether to disengage, seek support, and remove yourself from harmful dynamics. Beyond individual tactics, consider the broader energies at play. Reality distortion echoes deeper insecurities, fear of abandonment, and desire for supremacy, or just a need to sanitize complex emotions in a healing framework. Recognize the impact of these energies invites compassion both for oneself and the person who likes to manipulate. It invites a mindful response rather than a reactive one, which is really important, like I said, because people like to judge from the reaction. So you want to take time to pause, take a breath, access, and respond with boundaries that are going to protect your truth. Communication, when possible, can be reframed from a debate to clarity. Instead of contesting every point, you might just document your perspective and invite a neutral third party to review the facts. If the pattern persists, shifting away from the relationship and environment that thrives on distortion is necessary for your well being. You have to realize that. You can't stay in a chaotic environment and think that you're going to thrive. That's not going to happen. The journey of safeguarding your reality is deeply personal. It involves reclaiming your inner witness, the part of you that knows your truth, even when others attempt to rewrite it. And you're going to find people want to rewrite who you are, the story of your life. Again, in some people's stories, you're the villain. In some stories, you're the savior. I mean, everybody has a different perception of you. But what's most important is your own perception about yourself. And this means cultivating discernment. Again, we all have the gift of discernment, and this is very important. So, knowing what you feel, what you remember, and what you need to feel safe. It also means honoring your emotions as valid signals rather than evidence of your supposed to, you know, fragility. Over time, resilience boundaries become a shield and a compass. You begin to recognize when you are being drawn into a narrative that just does not feel like a fit within your true experience, and you learn to step back, recenter, reassert your truth with claim, steady clarity. In this process, you do not have to face the distortion alone. You can again reach out to friends, reach out to a trusted advisor, a counselor, journal, do something that's going to again get you back to the perception of what your reality was. Now, as a community of seekers here on the Psychic Soul Healer channel, we honor the complexity of these dynamics and the courage that it takes to connect them. Now, if you find yourself navigating the murky waters of manipulation, you're not broken or to blame. You're human with a right to a grounded sense of self. The practice of recognizing gaslighting and reality distortion is not a single act, but a continuous practice of self trust, boundary setting, and compassionate discernment. May you move through your days with greater clarity, stronger boundaries, and a deeper trust in your own truth. Now, as we step into the heart of our talk, here are 10 Oracle style reflections to gently guide our awareness of choices woven into the flow of your moment to moment experiences. So, what is the most common pattern in a relationship where reality is being distorted? And how can you identify it in the moment? We want to know. We want to know. So, let's see. How can we see it in the moment? Well, first card out is narrow mindedness. So when we're stuck in a perception, that's how we can recognize it. When we keep reliving like the pattern, what is the pattern? And the pattern is a negative thought pattern that keeps us stuck. So narrow-minded and stuck in a place of self-denying. So that's what Spirit's saying. It's like, first of all, if you notice, a person that gaslights you is always oppressing you. They're always trying to limit you because they want to use your power for their gain. And that might mean, hey, you're entitled to money. Well, again, whoever has to give you that money, they might not want to give it to you. It could be relationship. It could be an opportunity. Well, I don't believe that you should have that opportunity. You know, understand you're dealing with people that are imperfect in an imperfect world, and we're imperfect too. However, if you're on the conscious journey of healing and doing your shadow healing, you should be evolving and wanting more for yourself. So when you're in an environment with someone that again is keeping you stuck in a narrow mindset, one that's self-denying, keeping you stuck, you can feel that energy. So the spirit says that's first and foremost. Now, which specific tactics, denying, trivializing, or manipulating evidence usually signals the onset of gaslighting in a situation that you're currently facing. So this is which specific tactics are you going through right now if you are connected to somebody that is gaslighting you. So let's see what they say here. So it would be again cruel. So someone is like downplaying, they're trivializing, they're denying, like oh they're being mean and they're saying that they're not. And you can feel also that they're angry, but their way is to project that anger onto you. And so Spirit's saying it's like, how can you discern between genuine difference of opinion and a deliberate distortion of evidence? Because what you know is that, no, this person is cruel to me. They want me to be angry. They want me in a lower energy. They want me stuck in a mindset of where I'm self-denying and stuck. Where really Spirit says, well, then the answer is again, first and foremost, to ground. For you can't tap into the truth if you're up in your head and you're emotionally out of balance. Gaslighting requires the person to come in and emotionally throw you out of balance. They can't do that if you're present, if you're grounded, if you're in the here and now. Only in the now do you get divine guidance. So we have to first get into our body, first and foremost. Then what we need to do, grab these cards too. What we need to do is we need to unlock DNA. Now that's like unlock our DNA. Well, understand ancestral karma is based on the habits and conditionings that we inherit from our ancestors. Sickness and disease is only 5% inherited. So what activates our DNA is really how we react. So Spirit's saying it's like, well, how do you what do you need to do to heal? You attract a person that gaslights you. You have feelings for them. You can't tell the difference between when they're telling the truth, when they're not. You don't understand the connection. The connection is kind of toxic. It keeps you in a place of staying angry and ruminating and keeps you stuck in that mindset, which is all about self-denying so that they can have dominance over you. And really, Spirit's saying is to be grounded. Don't inherit whatever the codependency was that you inherited, because unlocking your DNA is that. It's like if sickness and disease is only 5% inherited and we're inheriting mainly our habits and our behaviorisms, we're doing the same thing that our parents did. And so that is what creates the distortion and spirit saying, which is then overstimulated. So you're saying, well, the gaslight needs to be you unlock the DNA by not getting into a codependent relationship because of manipulation. A lot of times that's when you're in a codependent relationship, that's where that's done. It doesn't mean that the person doesn't love. It means that they feel that there's something lacking. They want to utilize your energy for something that's going to make them feel whole. And the way that they do it is by overstimulating. And you can only get overstimulated if you emotionally are so invested in someone. If you don't have enough of your own life, and this person has become your life, which a lot of times within gaslighting, that's what it is. Whether that person is giving you the time or they're just keeping you stuck up in your head for the majority of time and only giving you a little time, you're still connected to them the majority of time and they don't care. Just as long as you don't move on. So again, the key is not to stay overstimulated, is to ground yourself, in doing different things that are not the same as codependency, is really what Spirit's saying. To know that you're invincible, that again, no one can stop you. How can you discern? Like again, the difference between your opinion and distorted events is all about grounding and again, paying attention to what this person wants to act as if, oh, it's not really a big deal. Like when you dismiss what someone else is acting like isn't a big deal, it's again, they're tributizing it, they're downplaying it, they're making it like, oh, you're a drama queen, that you're this, trying to make you feel bad about your emotions. You have to then say, even if you couldn't trust your mind, though you can trust your mind, and by journaling and doing everything that I've stated would tell you. But even if we didn't tap into the mind and we tapped into the body, in what ways does your body react when your reality is being undermined? And which signals, like, should you trust? And the one thing that came out was before was, guess what? Overstimulation. I don't like all of a sudden, like you get that burst of, oh my God, I don't trust, I don't feel safe. That's what like because we know it's a sick feeling. It's a sense of, oh, this just doesn't feel right. I'm not gonna get a good response from it. There's a sense that we don't feel secure in it. And when that happens, where we know. When the person is again only looking at themselves so intuitively. Are they ever taking your feelings into consideration, or do you feel intuitively they can feel when they've pushed it to a limit, and then they throw you a breadcrumb? But that's not something that they automatically do. See, people that manipulate, they're usually all about themselves. They get caught up in themselves. Now they can put on the act and manipulate through giving through a short period of time in order to win you over. But consistency in how this person is with other people, you have to watch how they are with their friends, how they are with their parents, how they are with the people that they claim are friends. If they, are one-sided, well, guess what? They will eventually be one-sided with you. We always pay attention to the people that surround the person. Because a person can pretend that they're a good person by doing good deeds out within the community, right? They can show you that. They can actually treat you nice too. But when you pay attention to the people that are the closest to them and how the relationships that they have, That will tell you if the person's greedy, if they're all about themselves, if they're one-sided. People that are manipulative, they have that undertone. It doesn't mean that they don't put on the facade at first. Remember, we're learning how to discern before we get tricked. So you may date a person, but by you observing them and noticing how they interact with the people that are around them, and by what you're feeling and how this person is downplaying your feelings and emotions, or whether they can show up for you. Well, again, you can get out of the connection before emotionally you had created a strong connection to them. Because it's once you have formed a connection to the person, the irony is you actually didn't form a connection to that person. You formed a connection to the persona that they wanted you to perceive that they were, not who they truly were. So you fell in love with a figment of like your imagination, kind of, and that because the person isn't that. They're a chameleon. But then letting go of that is hard because, again, the law of alchemy tells us that we need to replace that energy with something else. So you say, why was I connected to somebody that manipulated and gaslighted me the whole time? And I know that they did that, but I still have feelings for them. Because, again, we fell in love with that. The reality on some level was that you were going to be with that person. Now, once you change a person's reality, it affects that person's sense of self. So it's very traumatizing. So before we get to that place, we want to be able to again recognize how our body again is reacting and the reality that's being undermined, what's happening, what signals are happening. And so we saw underminedness, but also like we can feel small. The person wants to make us feel small, like obscurity, like we don't have enough, like we're not good enough. Again, all ways to make you give more, to kind of fight to give more of your energy for fight for like your belief when really specific tactics are really when you see it them do it they do it over and over and over again. So you need to ask yourself, what is the first practical boundary that you should set when you suspect a gaslight happening? Like, what should you do? And who is the most trustworthy person that you can consult for your reality check? And you want to again be able to make make their perception credible in the moment. That's why you want to go to someone that you value. You want to ask because it's again while you're trying to rebuild your sense of self. So again, what is the practical boundary that you should set? So what we see is again, well, unstructured, meaning you don't know rules. It's like you're not going to tell me what to do and how to do it. It's like, and I'm not going to go into a serious relationship where we have a title or anything like that. I'm just going to observe how you're treating me, like how you're observing. So that could be, don't expect that much from me, but you have to prove yourself to me. So it's more about the other person having to give. Why? Because the manipulation is all about dominating you and getting from you. So if a person can actually play by your rules, where you're saying, hey, this is what would make me feel comfortable, and they would have to do it consistently, and it's more about you putting the energy into yourself, knowing you're different, you're unique, honor like the exquisiteness of who you are, and understand that that person, how they treat you, or their manipulation, and the gaslighting is all about dominance. But it's not because they don't see your exquisiteness. It's not because they don't see that. They see it. They want to utilize it for what it's good for them. So again, when we want to consult to somebody, it doesn't need to be someone that's structured, but it's got to be someone that's going to be patient with us, that's going to be able to seek out the deluded behavior, and they're going to be able to see it because there's going to be a lot of manic energy. Where a lot of times you won't see it because you could be caught up in this past life connection. And there was is always a little bit of a part of determined to make it work, right? But if it doesn't feel natural, spirit saying, then that's how you know. You need to then pause and then step back and ask yourself, what is the core truth of the experience that remains undeniable regardless of the other person's narrative? Like, what is that? And that could be the person is like just like regardless, show me one thing, but they just are a lower energy. That's what makes their, like what makes you see that person. So what is the most um so that for that energy to me is again when you don't trust somebody, what is the most trustworthy person that you can consult, we can ask, and that's going to be someone that comes more from a Christ consciousness, and that's not a Christian consciousness. It's just someone that's coming from like the energy of unconditional love. They don't have a perception one way or the other about it. They don't dislike this person. Sometimes we ask our friends, and our friends already don't like the person. So you don't want to like ask someone that way, or someone that has seen a million of one bad relationships and already has a bad perception of you. You want to be able to go to someone that's going to really have like non-judgment about the situation one way or the other. They're just hearing the story. And so that's really what to me is tells you like the right type of person to like be able to see that they're credible, because sometimes like again, if our friend tells us and we know our friend doesn't like that person, then we're going to be like, oh well, you don't really like that person. We can get caught up in that. So you also want to ask yourself, when memories conflict with someone else's account, what actions must like you have to ask yourself, um, does this person tend to what actions most protects your truth without escalating the situation? So, like, what do you wind up doing? What is something that you, and that's diplomacy. Spirit's saying it's like it's not reacting. Because that's the whole thing with people that gaslight. I said this in the beginning and I'm saying it towards the end. When you're dealing with a person that's gaslighting, the only power that they have is your reaction. It's like the people that gaslight, they know what they're doing. They're trying to take your energy. They're trying to utilize your energy, whether that's time, whether it's energy. Sometimes it's because they really care about you and they don't believe that they can have you or be in a relationship with you, or be friends with you, or you have a person that perceives that you have something that they don't. So there's always this weird energy right there of jealousy and of wanting to control and dominate because of that jealousy. But that tells you all about the other person's flaw. So you have to ask yourself, what willingness or change in the approach should shift the dynamic from manipulating towards clearer communication and mutual respect? And understand sometimes it's just not possible. Just sometimes, again, it's not going to be possible. People don't want to be. Um, But we can ask and we can ask. It's to honor yourself. Spirit says it's to honor yourself, honor other people. It doesn't mean that you have to agree. The issue is again, remember, the gaslighter wants something, wants your energy, wants to dominate somehow, to benefit. But really, if we look at that person and we say, first of all, they need healing, we're looking at them from a different perception. But then there's also this sense of, you know, if you care about the person, you could actually see what they admire so much in you, what they want to utilize in you, and see if they can cultivate it in themselves. Because really, no one needs to take away from someone else. Now, sometimes people don't want to do the work, and you're dealing with just a low vibe energy that is like, no, I don't want to do the work, but I want to take your energy, which is a lot of times when we're dealing with past life karmic mates. We still want to honor everybody, but the difference then is we are again, not being putting ourselves in a place of inferiority, but again, we can have compassion for that person, but then we have to detach from it, meaning have empathy then and sensitivity, but not to the point that you take it on. It's detachment, meaning it's like not your problem. It's like, then that's the thing. When a person manipulates, their power is that you care. It's your emotions. So it's not that you don't care, but you learn the art of detachment. And the art of detachment can only happen when you are grounded. And grounded, I always say, grounded in the things that you love in your life. It's like Spirit says, it doesn't really matter how you're grounded. If you're grounded, it means you're in the here and now and you're in the present moment. So someone can manipulate all that they want, but it's going to be really hard to shift your reality when you know where you are and you feel good about your life. You're not going to give this person the energy. And really, that's what it says. It's like it's to be able to love the person, but realize, have compassion for them, but realize that, they need healing. And what's most important then is for you to detach, because detaching means that you're releasing and that you hold no animosity, because unfortunately it's the anger and the animosity that keeps you bound to a person that's gaslighted. See, they don't really care how they take your energy, they just care that they take it, because then they can stay in a reality that makes them feel either superior, or they can utilize your energy, or they think that they can, when really we are the master and the alchemist of our own life. I want to thank you for joining this exploration on the Psychic Soul Healer channel. Now, if today's discussion resonated, consider reflecting on the moment when your reality may have been distorted and what types of steps that you can take to protect your truth, whether that means journaling, seeking support, or redefining a relationship that no longer honors your sense of self. Remember, your reality is valid. Your feelings are legitimate, and your voice deserves to be heard. Until next time, may your journey be illuminated with clarity, compassion, and courage. Please do check out my Psychic Soul Healer. Um, Coaching. Sorry, almost lost train of thought. If you like more deeper insights into regulation, trauma-informed perspectives, and transpersonal guidance, sign up for my Shadow Healing Coaching Program for just $7.99 a month on the Psychic Soul Healer channel and all my channels. You can check out all my channels. So if you're connected to a Virgo or a Scorpio or a Gemini, check out those channels. And all my zodiac channel you can find on this. And what you'll see is you'll get access to tailored sessions, live Q&As, and supportive information to help you heal, transform, and to just, like I said, live your best life. Until next time, be true to you. And remember, you're the alchemist of your life. So love yourself. Bye-bye.